Hello and welcome to Das Nostalgia Podcast, episode 26. As usual, I'm your host, Anatoly, and today we have a very special occasion for our podcast. We have a guest who returned for the third time. Sir, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Matt Bradley-Tschirgi. I'm at MATWBT on Twitter. I was on before for Leisure Suit Larry and I think the Interplay 10th anniversary CD-ROM episode.
Yep.
And, I just love reading your Twitter feed about DOS games. And I thought the Maxis Sim DOS games would be interesting to talk about because you don't, for whatever reason, aside from some of the SimCity games, you don't see them re-released very often on websites like GOG. And I was just sort of on a simulation kick recently and grew up with a few of these games and thought it'd be fun to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also nice, I like to group things in my podcast, right? To see, to discuss a sort of group of games. And this seems to be, they're, aside from SimCity, they're pretty, known, they're well-known titles, I would say, for the most part.
Right.
Like, gamers aware of their existence, even, the more obscure ones. And, Maxis was a big deal back in the day. It became an even bigger deal eventually, but right from the get-go, right? But I have a confession to make, and I'm going to make it very, very clear that I'm terrible at all those sort of management games and stuff. So I have very little experience with these games. I've tried playing them at one point or another, at least one time each. Several of the games I've attempted to play multiple times. And a couple I actually figured out how to play, and that's that. But I mostly do not have a lot of experience. So please, this is one of those podcasts where I would have to say, if I say something and get something wrong or whatever, it's because my memory of things is, kind of distant. And please don't write me angry comments. It's like, or don't write comments, but not angry ones. Just correct me and whatnot, but I would like to hear other people's experiences with these games. But before we get to the games themselves, I actually have a few things to say about Maxis themselves, right? It has it's a fairly short history, right? The first game was a big hit, but before that game, Will Wright, one of the founders of Maxis, worked at Bradley-Tschirgi Software, and originally, apparently, I've only recently learned this, but originally he developed the prototype, the SimCity prototype, which was called Micropolis, on C64 in 1985. And he showed it to the heads of Bradley-Tschirgi, and they declined publishing it, or, it wasn't an appealing idea to them. And he showed it to other publishers, and all of them declined. As well. So Will Wright met a guy named Jeff Braun in 1987 and showed him the game. So Braun saw the potential in it, and together they founded Maxis Software in 1987. And because Wright was an employee of Bradley-Tschirgi's when he made the original prototype, right, they had to get the rights to the original game from Bradley-Tschirgi. Well, fast forward to 1988, a year later, when the game was near completion, Bradley-Tschirgi was actually looking for new products, new interesting ideas, and decided to sign on Maxis as their publisher. And so in 1989, the first Maxis game comes out and, becomes a landmark title for the company and for gaming, I would say, in many ways. So that's the original SimCity.
That's right, yeah. I was, the original SimCity was the first one of these I played. I mean, I guess I'll say a little bit about my history, and then we'll sort of go in chronological order, more or less, with the DOS Maxis Sim games. And it was one of those, we had a computer lab at school, and we had one of the versions of SimCity available to play. I think it was a Oh, was it old? Was not the it might have been SimCity Classic even at the
Mhm.
time, and it was I just liked with the 2D graphics, and it was very appealing and so different. But you think of a simulation, and a lot of those games now are on cell phones. But back then with the computers and a mouse, it really made them ideal to play these kind of things. And yes, of course, they did ports of SimCity for Super Nintendo or Genesis and so on. But it's still these are meant to be played on a computer with a mouse. They're less. You can argue if these are games or not. They're sort of simulations, or people call them software toys.
Right.
And I would like to start by quoting the original manual for SimCity, the original one. And it says SimCity is the first of a new type of entertainment education software called system simulations. We provide you with a set of rules and tools that describe, create, and control a system. In the case of SimCity, the system is a city. The challenge of playing a system simulation game is to figure out how the system works and take control of it. As master of the system, you are free to use the tools to create and control an unlimited number of systems, in this case cities, within the frameworks and limits provided by the rules. Now, I mean, that's a very dry definition of what SimCity is and what the whole simulation genre is, but it's
Yes.
not. It's not wrong. I mean, you play these games as God, not literally as in something like Populous, but you can do what you want. You have a limited resource. In this case, is money, and you sort of it's sort of open ended. You sort of make your own fun, and that makes it. They do have scenarios in some of these games, especially like SimAnt, as we'll talk about, but it's as fun as you want it to be. And if you don't like economics or numbers, if you don't have patience, it can be a bit frustrating. People either love or hate these sort of games for different reasons. I mean, replaying some of these for this show, I couldn't figure out even with the 200-page manual. But the original SimCity is nice because it's very approachable, I think. And
It's
there's something
accessible. Yeah.
accessible. That's a
Yeah.
good word. Yep. And when you played SimCity, which version was the one you played at the when you very first played it?
I originally played the most original version. Well, I mean,
Oh, okay.
there's very
The
few
black and white,
differences.
or
Well, they're not black and white. It's the original release. I might as well get this out of the way. But what I like about the original SimCity, it supports quite a few video modes. Now, you wouldn't know that if the game is pirated, but and I didn't know that for the longest time because I played the pirated version. But when you install one of the like many, because it got a few updates in between the year of 89 and 90. When you install SimCity, it asks you which video mode you want, and it only installs files for that video mode, so you can't switch it after you installed it.
That's unusual. Okay.
So it copies the files of a floppy onto another floppy or on your hard drive, and I think what most people remember is sort of the default choice of the high resolution EGA 640 by 350. But out of the box, the original version also supports CGA, and in CGA it uses a high resolution CGA, the 640 by 200 black and white mode. It also supports 320 by 200 standard EGA mode, and it also supports MCGA 640 by 480 black and white 1 bit. So those are the four, and Hercules. The Hercules resolution is 720 by 348.
That sounds about right. That's wow. What a strange what a unique resolution.
Yeah, but SimCity supports all those modes fully, and actually has different graphic sets for all of them. On Twitter, I did about a year ago, I did the screenshots of each version, and even how you start with the default when you load up the Tokyo scenario, it has like a plane landing onto the airport right in the beginning, and that looks different in almost every version. So it takes advantage of all those modes, and it's sort of calibrated for each of the tile sets is different. Obviously it's the same tile sets for let's say all of the black and white ones, right? But it's still a variation, and I don't think anybody played SimCity in the like 320 by 200 EGA because everybody sort of settled for 640 by 350 because this is the kind of game that you want the biggest resolution you can get, basically.
That's right. You want the most real estate on the screen to
pretty much.
see the most of your city.
But that's the version that I've played. I've played the version but I played the pirated version that only had the EGA files, basically. So that was that.
In SimCity, I like how accessible it is. You basically you have money as your resource. Of course, there's the cheat codes you can use to get money, but they set off the earthquakes if you do too many of them. But it's more fun to play, I think, when you cheat and have the money and you don't have the stress of running out of money so quickly. But you build. You need electricity, typically with like nuclear or coal power plants. You build residential, commercial, and industrial zones. Residential is like houses. Commercial is like a shopping center. Industrial is like factories where people work. And you build roads or light rail, depending on what you want to do. It's just like a 2D overhead perspective, and it's things are in square blocks when you put things down. Parks are little tiny blocks. It's just very easy to understand. You don't deal with the complexities of putting objects in a 3D plane like in SimCity 2000.
And also the UI is made very accessible. You have like by nowadays standard, it's kind of weird to look at it and say like, because it's just such a standard film thing, like a toolbar on the side, kind of like you would have in a paint program, right, or something like that.
That's right. Yep.
Very similar with the tools that you select and the menus that extend from each tool sometimes. And it's like, but back in the day, that was not as common for games of that type, even strategy games. So I think it deserves recognition for that. Not to say it's the first or not even near the first game to do that, but I think it fit the actual simulation. Like it was a very accessible game because of that, because it was represented graphically, simple enough for you to understand what's just by looking at the screen what everything is, just by graphical tile sets and the icons that appear like over them. If there's something going on, like no electricity or no power or that sort of stuff. And the tools that you had were also easy to figure out.
Right, and the game was as complex as you wanted it to be, because if you want to, you can dive into the maps and look at the crime ratings in different areas of the city and the fire coverage and build more police or fire stations or more parks to reduce pollution. And also the game is in real time, but you can slow down the speed to so slow where you can sort of take your time, or if you sort of have your city and you want to have the population expand, you can make it go really fast. You can set disasters ad hoc, including the Godzilla sort of monster.
Yes.
Which is fun. I think, you can wreck your own city. You can, I believe, I'm confused. I don't remember if it's the original SimCity had this. Certainly SimCity 2000 had this, but there is, you could get expansion packs that just change the graphic set, the graphic tile set.
The original had a bunch of those as well.
The original had some of those too. Okay, right. So like,
there's like a futuristic city.
Like Mars. I just love the simplicity of the game is real fun. For a little bit, Electronic Arts had a version of SimCity Classic you could play on their website.
Yes.
For free. But
I just looked into that today because they took that page down.
That's right. I used to, my sister got married, her husband wanted to play the original SimCity, and I sent them the link for that website, and they would use that a lot because they didn't want to pay money for the game. But so there you go. But yeah, SimCity Classic was a later version of SimCity that came out in '93. The graphics are better.
Well, it's actually the same. It's the same. They added, they fixed some bugs. Obviously, they removed the copy protection. If anybody like SimCity is a game old enough to have one of those copy protections, like 4 sheets or even 6 sheets of like red paper with like those symbols. Like I think it gives you like 4 or 5 symbols, which is it's like squares was filled. Some squares are empty and some are filled in, and you need to like find out, like it will be like, which one is the symbol for New York City something something, and like you'll go and you'll find the reference, you'll like tap up the squares and stuff. So they removed that, and but it also adds VGA support. So now you have a 320 by 200 VGA mode, the 256 color, which again not very convenient. But you also have a standard 16 color 640 by 480 mode. I think there might be some additional scenarios in there as well. Again, those versions are almost indistinguishable from each other, but it does say SimCity Classic on the title screen with that sign and the cow.
Yes, of course, the cow.
So that's that. But other than that, it's exactly the same game. Like even like if you look at the file size, if you like install both of them, I don't think it's much bigger, to be honest with you. So it's that. It was just I think another way to cash in on that. Because by 1993, right, it became a big deal, and also
it did, sure.
The sequel came out at around that time, so that's why they wanted to. But not only the sequel, right? They also released SimCity Enhanced.
Yes, and that's the first version of SimCity I owned. My family got the first sort of computer they got for the family, but I was the one that used it the most. Was a 486 66 double speed CD-ROM Packard Bell.
Wow.
And we picked up SimCity Enhanced because, of course, we have a CD-ROM, so you want CD-ROM games.
It's a weird update.
It's very strange. You have... I was talking on this with on Twitter with FMV Story.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Lots of FMV in there.
Yeah, he's great. But we were talking about SimCity and sort of swapping clips on YouTube from it, and... So, to give context, in the regular SimCity game, you know, there's stuff can catch on fire, or there's a crime wave spree, you need to build more police stations. And you just sort of know this is happening by checking on the map, or there might be a line of text that goes across the screen. Well, in the CD-ROM version, it plays an intrusive, poorly compressed full-motion video clip of really bad actors.
They're so bizarre, some of those clips.
Yeah, we FMV Story and I were comparing the tone to... you remember in Command & Conquer, in the very beginning, it has like fake commercials with people jogging?
Yes.
It almost feels... It's this sort of tone. It's like weird...
But it is even more bizarre, like the sound effects that they put on.
The cartoon sound effects everywhere. What's even stranger is Greenpeace has some advertisements that are sprinkled on there as videos, and there are public service announcements for Greenpeace, which is strange in that SimCity, it's not an especially environmental game other than it encourages you to build rail over roads. And you have these commercials showing dead footage of turtles or whatever it is. It just sort of takes you out of it, but the acting is real hammy. You have like the
news reports are by far like
yes.
It's hard to explain to people who haven't seen it, like not the news, but like just the actual clips, not where people talk, but how they directed, how they composed. It's like you need to go on YouTube, and I think there's a compilation of not even remotely everything. First of all, the game is like that CD-ROM was packed.
Yes,
with those, it's a lot of variations on the cutscenes. Even like just for the monster, you know, like the news report for the monster, I think there's at least 3 different ones that I've seen, maybe more. I don't really know. But you can go on YouTube and punch in like SimCity CD-ROM cutscenes, and it's just like a 2-minute compilation of just those bizarre clips with cartoon sound effects. It's really something. It doesn't fit that game at all, but
no, the only video that sort of fits the game, I think it's on the title screen. It does sort of an early CG of a plane flying through the city, and that's fine.
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm reading the back of the case for SimCity Enhanced. It says, with full motion video, digitized speech, and a talented cast of actors, your cities and Sim citizens that dwell in them come to life. It's it's bizarre. Like, it's not the best way to play the game, but you owe it to yourself to go on YouTube and look at some of the compilations.
It's a good novelty in a way, but also so all of the graphics have been redone. It's now the game plays in 640 by 480 SVGA, right? So it's 256 color, and the UI has like that nice sort of interesting. I guess easy on the eye, sort of bluish, sort of tint to it. I'm actually going to pull up. You know what I'm looking for? I'm hoping I have it handy, but there's a. Come on. Tell me I have the ad for the yes, there's an ad that's called for SimCity CD-ROM, and it's actually, it says welcome to SimCity CD-ROM. Sure, it's all fun and games when you can play Lord God King to a bunch of pixel high people and text boxes. Now let's see how that mayoral muster holds up when you're faced with the real thing. Real disasters, real chaos, real people. Yeah. So, and this version was actually published by Interplay, interestingly enough.
Yeah, that is sort of strange. I don't know why.
Somebody told me that Interplay was involved. Well, not somebody told me. I know Interplay was involved with Maxis at that point because they're also the ones behind the SimAnt CD-ROM. More on that later. But yeah, so all the graphics were redone, but I think the monster has been replaced, right? Like, it's also one of those versions where the monster is not Godzilla looking anymore. It's like another lizard. I'm not sure. I would have to confirm.
Yeah, it looks more like a red Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yes, something like that. Well,
and I don't know if they had legal troubles.
Probably, I would assume.
With Godzilla, because they're still, it's Godzilla. They've been making movies for over 50 years.
And at that point, there's also quite a few new Godzilla movies coming out. My favorite ones, actually. the Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2. And like those are the 3 early 90s movies that I adore. But anyway, so it's an interesting update. I probably wouldn't recommend it as it's not, like you said, it's not a preferred way of playing that game, but it's as a novelty, as a 90s CD-ROM title, for its cheese value, and just because everything is so different.
That's right.
I would recommend just checking it out for those people who are into that sort of stuff.
So SimCity, from there, the next Sim game that came out was SimEarth, just a year later in 1990, and Will Wright was still involved with the design at this point. And I have a feeling when people bought SimEarth, they enjoyed SimCity, and they might have felt ripped off when they got SimEarth because it's a lot more dense. It's less friendly of a game.
Yeah,
it's very, very obtuse.
Well, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of simulation in that game.
Right. It's even more of it. If you thought SimCity was boring, that's nothing compared to SimEarth.
And in a way, it's less of a game, like even less of a game than SimCity, but a lot more of a simulation. In a way, very unique and a very sort of bold product for its time. Certainly very interesting. I remember trying that a long time ago. Again, I could never figure half the stuff out back then, or now, I think. But it's a very interesting idea because it's essentially like a very complicated, like one of those life simulations. Like you would write, the square, the programs that they teach.
Oh, right, where it replicates.
Where it replicates, and then they eat some. So it's like that, only like times 2,000. You get to sort of create the planet, the climate, do that, and then create vegetation and flora and fauna, and watch it do stuff, essentially.
That's right. It's a lot of waiting and tweaking. And I will say the one thing about SimEarth that makes it a little bit more gamey than the original SimCity is you do have these scenarios that you unlock in order unless you're doing sort of the random planet mode, where it starts where like it's an aquarium, it's mainly an ocean world. Well, how do you have to get some sort of a civilization with a certain population or something to happen, and you have to set a volcano and make it go off, but it can't be too hot or else it'll pollute the sky. And you're changing things like the biosphere, you're changing the weather, like level of food, how much the animals reproduce. Like it gets that granular. The original manual for SimEarth is over 100 pages.
No, yeah. It's also you can tweak a lot,
Yeah, that's right.
and you really have to micromanage everything in a way if you actually want to play, other than and not just like fuck around.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's a very interesting idea. I particularly to me years ago when I first saw it, which was in I think mid-90s sometime. Um, it sort of fascinated me in a way, but I still couldn't figure it out. But I was very impressed back then with the concept. Like I understood what the concept was, and it was cool. I couldn't play it, but to this day, it left me impressed. I would say. The reason I look back at it fondly, even though I never really invested time to play it, is because of that. It does have that initial, at least to me, because again, fairly unusual for a product of
Hmm.
that time.
It's very. I agree. It's quite ambitious.
Yes.
I'm not very good at it. I don't like playing it very much, but I enjoy what it's doing. And in doing some research on this and sort of reading things on GameFAQs, I was pretty amused. The manual is such a good primer on ecology and science and how the Earth was formed that middle school students were using the instruction manual for SimEarth to pass their exams.
That's pretty funny.
So it's a lot of it's based on the Gaia theory from James Lovelock, and it is very peculiar. It's certainly worth your time, but if you go into SimEarth thinking, okay, this is going to be just like SimCity, it's not. Like it's completely. They really went into left field with SimEarth.
Right. Yeah, yeah. It's for a company. I mean, if you transport now that we look back at the Maxis legacy, it's easy to see where it all fits in, right? But back then, they had one game and it was a follow-up to SimCity, fairly anticipated. That this was something. Obviously, Maxis wanted to do many different things, as we got to find out with their other products throughout the years. But back then, this is probably not the kind of SimCity sequel that most people expected.
Now, and I have to give Maxis credit for that. They could have easily come out with SimCity 2
Right.
in
Which
the next year.
which they ended up doing, but not in the next year. But it took them like
No, a
4
few years
years
later they did.
But
SimCity
yeah, in
2000.
between those two, there's like 3 very sort of experimental products, essentially. In a similar vein that, SimCity was essentially a new thing. It's not like God games and management games didn't exist, but it was the first one to really like appeal to people. So yeah, again, it was interesting to see where Maxis took it over the next. I don't really have anything else to say about SimEarth. Like that's that. Shall we? Shall we
Yeah.
just move on?
Yeah, move on to SimAnt.
SimAnt came out in 1991, and that's an interesting one, in my opinion. Again, it's actually really different from both SimCity and SimEarth. I don't know how much of that was maybe a reaction to SimEarth. I would like to think that, at least I thought that maybe none of this has to do with the reaction to SimEarth, but maybe it did, because certain things are implemented, like it has like an easy mode, right? Like it has a go and play mode right in the title screen, like that sort of stuff. But yeah, in SimAnt, which is called SimAnt the Electronic Ant Colony, and so you control an ant colony, like one ant at a time. It's fairly detailed, right, as far as sort of ant life goes. Calling it a simulator, I would say this time, is this game is a bit less of a simulator than the previous 2 titles.
It's more of an action game, I think, where there's the queen and you get food to bring to your hive.
The life cycle is described fairly well, and you use pheromones to sort of like outline the areas of food and enemy and all that stuff, sort of all those anti things, but you do it in a fairly like sort of fast-paced action style, and also the amount of interaction this time, because first SimCity is like you lay roads, blah blah blah, this is that. you have a lot of options. In SimEarth, you have that times 20, right? Like there's lots of options to everything. In SimAnt, the interactions are kind of limited to, well, yes, you're an ant, so there's only that much you can do, but yet it just simplifies that's the sort of stuff. So you're an ant, there's separate sort of sections of the game where one of them, the underground tunneling, is when you start off. Then you're on the surface, where in a top-down view, where you get food and fight the other colonies that of ants that are also on the surface, and other things like spiders and such. But you also have access to a house. So you to a house and the levels of the house, which I don't think are actually represented in the game. Never really got that far. I always played the fast mode for the most part. I don't know if you can actually navigate the actual house, but I think that you're given, like, in each plot of the land, as you get closer to the house, you can sort of navigate that, and eventually you can, like, get in the house and, like, sort of overtake the house because you're given that option to view that. And there are some parameters that you can adjust as far as your ants. You control the ant directly. That's another difference from SimCity and SimEarth, where you just sort of affect things around things, right? But
that's right, and I think that the graphics are a good bit better in this game as well.
Oh yeah, they're high resolution.
You get very fun close-up graphics when the ants are fighting each other.
Yes,
or different things happen. It has a lot of detail with all the hairs sticking off the ant's face. The instruction manual for this one's really well done. There's a lot of ant puns.
I've never seen the manual. I should probably check it out.
So also this game has a tutorial, which we didn't have in the other two games, which was even in 1991 you did not see in games very much. So that's, again, maybe they're trying to go for a younger audience or trying to be more accessible. But it mentions the other parts of the game: tutorial, going for a buggy ride. In the section that has sort of the encyclopedia on ants, in the manual it says beyond ants, ancillary materials. It's it is much of it's written in that way. So depending on your how much you enjoy or don't enjoy those sort of early 90s puns, your mileage may vary. But yeah, SimAnt, it's a different game, but it's colorful. It's fun. It's as accessible as SimEarth is inaccessible. And it's its own thing. I don't think I've ever seen quite a game like this since.
No, yeah. And it also, that can almost be classified, not almost, can be classified as, like, real educational title, right? At the same time, as actiony as it is. Like, this is a game that sort of lets you, because in order to play it, you have to learn how ants and their colonies operate effectively. So you can play. Because you can't just, like, run out of your hole and just go and chase after the enemies. That's not going to work out.
You'll die
Yes, you'll die of starvation before you even get to any enemies, but that's beside the point. Like, so you get to learn how the ant colony functions. So within those parameters, you get to function, you get to sustain the life in your colony, and you also do it in an actiony manner. So in a way, it's like action simulator. It's edutainment title. I think, like, I've learned a lot by playing that game. I don't really know how didn't really know how ants live, so that's that.
Yeah, I mean, the different modes in the game, you have tutorial, which is its own mode. There's a quick game, which is just the ants versus the full game. As you mentioned, you sort of go from hex to hex, which each hex is a big sort of area where you fight the other ants. There's an open-ended experimental mode. I'm looking at a section of the manual, yet another pun, where it says the game is afoot, in parentheses, all 6 of them.
Oh boy,
jeez.
I don't know if I can get behind that one. I normally like puns, but this one is
this
one's pushing it.
But you can, as you mentioned, you can control in your ant colony how many soldiers are made compared to breeders and the workers. I really like SimAnt, and you, in fact, ran across some sort of advertising or something about
it was
canceled
an
CD-ROM
article in a joystick French magazine where apparently Interplay was also involved in updating SimAnt for CD-ROM, and it would look like it was just going to be SimAnt with new graphics and cutscenes, sort of SimCity Enhanced style.
I see.
But the 3D cutscenes would also use that face capturing technology, that same company that did Mario face in CD-ROM version of Mario Teaches Typing.
Mm-hmm.
And also they did the same thing on TV and at expos. That's how that guy who voices Mario got his job. He was the voice of Mario and facial capture, like real-time facial capture at expos. So that would be the same thing. And there's a photo of an actress doing like an ant queen. It was weird, but eventually it got canned. So because the version that came out, SimAnt on the CD-ROM does not really have any of those enhancements. In fact, I think it's just a Windows 3.1 update. Which is largely the same, just with the Windows UI, which is kind of the same as we didn't really mention because hashtag not DOS, but there is also SimCity for Windows 3.1 release, which is essentially the original SimCity. It sticks to 16 colors, the default Windows 3.1 palette, that slightly weird palette, and it has the UI is just the standard Windows button, which at that point makes it look kind of bland and ugly. I do like the blue tint of the UI of SimCity Enhanced much more. But yeah, nothing exciting came out of SimAnt CD-ROM. It will be interesting to see. Again, the 3 screenshots that I have are like all from pre-rendered CG cutscenes. Maybe there would have been some footage like of sort of Discovery Channel like stuff, but it doesn't look like it.
Oh yeah, that would have made sense.
It would have made sense, but the screenshots that I'm seeing are like pre-rendered CG, which, as you know, circa that time, not particularly impressive. So yeah.
So on next year, 92, SimLife. SimLife is more like SimEarth in that it's obtuse and it's complicated. As you can guess from the name SimLife, it's a bit more granular. You can make your own species, but the graphics I think are really poor, and they don't do the game any favors. There is a Maxis did a game called, I think, Unnatural Selection or something like that did it's a much better version of this idea. But as speaking specifically to SimLife itself, you can just stare at the manual, and I struggled with this game for an hour, and I could not get anywhere. So I started looking through a FAQ and got more of an idea of what to do. I like that you can customize so much of it. I like the idea, but it almost seems like it's being complicated for the sake of being complicated.
Yeah. To me, it's the same thing as SimEarth, basically. Like,
right.
It's that, only you don't have to stick to... Like, certain things are even more flexible this time around. And, yeah, I don't know. I think this might be one of the first games that I saw that could run in, like insane resolution of some kind. Like, for the time. Like, 800 by 600, I think. And maybe even 1024 by 768 was an option that I don't remember. Don't quote me on it. I will actually have to double check. But 800 by 600 I think was supported in SimLife, which is in 1992 pretty impressive. Well, if you had an SVGA card in the monitor, it could handle it. But that's really it. Like, in a way, it's kind of like SimEarth, only even more complicated. So this is even closer. You know how I said like SimEarth was like a game of life in a way. So SimLife is literally just that. It has that in the title. So it's very much like the similar kind of thing.
Which I think is, I'm sure there's fans of this game out there, but it's too bad because I do love the cover art on the box for SimLife. You have a rhino head on top of a tiger body, and you have looks like a kangaroo body with a toucan head and a dinosaur tail. It's really fanciful, and it makes you think the game's going to be more exciting than it is. The producers of SimLife called it the genetic playground, and it's very minimalist with the graphics, with a lot of like really really tiny dots everywhere. It's just I just found it very frustrating. This was not one of the ones I liked revisiting.
Yeah, it's like same with again, same with SimEarth.
Hmm.
It's a tad too complicated for me to, well, a tad. Even SimCity can be complicated for me to enjoy, but and that other sort of stuff is way too much. Uh, so yeah, it's not my kind of thing. But if you, dear listeners, played a lot of SimEarth or SimLife, please leave us a comment.
Yep. SimEarth and SimLife are two peas in a pod. Let's see. And so 93, there's quite a lot of different ones that came out.
Right, and we already mentioned a bunch because SimCity Classic and SimCity Enhanced came out at that time. The Windows 3.1 one might have been earlier or maybe around the same time because it might be SimCity Classic for Windows. I don't quite recall. I haven't really touched any of that stuff in a long time, so it might have all been at the same time. But also a big thing for Maxis that year, the long-awaited sequel to SimCity comes out, and they jumped straight to, it wasn't SimCity 2, it was SimCity 2000.
And that was quite ahead of its time. In 93, you didn't see a lot of games call themselves such and such 2000, as you would in the late 90s or closer to the year 2000. I mean, yeah, the music is this real weird, depressing, jazzy score that sounds like sort of a takeoff like the Blade Runner soundtrack. It vaguely reminds me of, but with the sort of squawky MIDI saxophones, which depending on your sound card, sounded better or worse. And you might think that the graphics are much higher resolution, and then that you're moving to a 3D landscape.
Right. Well, it's like isometric.
Isometric, yeah. So 2.5D, I guess, but is really changes the way you play the game because you're not just plopping down residential zones or power plants or electricity lines. You can mold the land to be higher or lower. You can add in rivers. You can add in a subway system. You can add in pipes.
Right. Yeah. So it's what would you expect out of SimCity sequel? 4 years have passed in between the products, so now you have an additional layer of control, additional gameplay layer in the way of landscape, and also, of course, graphics and sounds and all those bells and whistles that, at that point, PCs were, evolving very quickly. So now to think about, it's 4 years at that time is such a big, giant leap. In technology in every way, so those products look nothing and look sound and just the presentation is nothing alike, but it's the same simple concept, just it's enhanced appropriately for a sequel.
I think so. I mean, you can build the core gameplay is basically the same, but you can build like museums. There's more different kinds of power types. There's more of what you loved, and I think the isometric viewpoint makes your cities look more like real cities. It's not as flat looking as the original.
Right, and of course the now legendary the meme that SimCity 2000 spawned is the advisor. You'll regret that.
That you see that all over the place. The one I was thinking when you said meme was as the game loads, you hear a female voice saying reticulating splines, which is something you see referenced in a lot of other games in loading screens. And the cover of SimCity 2000, it has like the UFO. It's a very iconic sort of cover.
Right.
Max, in at least with the United States cover art, was very good with the branding at this time, which I think is part of the reason why they re-released SimCity, where the box art is mostly white.
Right.
And then you have the black print, and then Sim is really big.
And yeah, it's like a white border with the title, and then sort of the in the center there's an image that relates to the game that's sort of like slightly pushing out of that area into the white sometimes. So yeah, it's they're all like neat boxes.
Gives kind of a three-dimensional look. I mean, from a distance, it like you look at a box and you can tell, oh, that's a Sim game from Maxis, which is neat. Oh, that's right. There was the SimCity Urban Renewal Kit for SimCity 2000 where you could change the graphics, which was big. And then they had sort of the mission expansion pack scenarios volume 1 that has different scenarios like a UFO attack.
Hmm. Well, that's a thing too. Like the monster, the everyone's favorite Godzilla got replaced in
Yeah,
SimCity 2000 with like a UFO with arms, sort of with
looks almost
metal
like a
arms.
spider.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it floats around and like destroys things. Well, it's all right, but not as cool as Godzilla.
No, everybody loves Godzilla. I mean, they could get away with that with the first game because nobody really cared, and then the game became famous.
Yeah. So that's yeah. So SimCity 2000, like the original, only better. I think it's the game that a lot of people. Well, also it's stuck. There hasn't been a SimCity sequel after that for a long time. A direct sequel, but it's I think loved just as much as the original game, at least as far as I can tell.
It seems to be some people's favorite in the series, although a lot of people like SimCity 4 as well.
Hmm. But yeah, for the longest time, that's the one that people would bring up as is their favorite one.
Hmm.
So shall we move on to another 1993 product?
Who can forget SimCity's country cousin, SimFarm?
Yes, a game that under the first game under the Sim brand that wasn't developed by Maxis, but was developed by Leaping Lizard Software, um, and it's SimFarm. SimFarm is SimFarm. It's sort of tough to explain. It sort of goes back to that sort of like visually to not as fancy, certainly SimCity 2000, and certainly looks more like SimEarth or SimLife, where things are sort of like high resolution but simple representations, and you get your farm. It's a sort of top-down view of your farm, of your fields, and you get to pick, which seeds you plant, and what kind of livestock you have, what pesticides you use.
It's a much bigger focus on economics because you're trying to do profit margin.
Right, there's like a distance from the city, and where you would sell the stuff, and I am not big on farms and farming and countryside and that sort of stuff, so not my thing. I played a little bit of it. I actually played a little bit of it last year, and it works fine. It's fairly accessible, I would say. But I don't know. I didn't find it particularly engrossing, I would say.
I think it's kind of fun. I like how it looks more like the original SimCity.
Yeah.
But I can certainly see if it's 93, you just buy SimCity 2000 and then you want to pick up something else like it and you get SimFarm. I mean, visually, it's such a step backwards.
Yeah.
That probably threw people off at the time. But that it's more of an economic focus makes it different enough from SimCity. I mean, yes, you're trying to expand your farm and you're building some buildings, but it's really more about the crops and the cattle, and you got to consider the weather and how that affects everything as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You have the I believe just like in SimCity Classic, there's a cow on the title screen, which makes a nice cow consistency.
Consistency.
Consistency, very good. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll be here all week.
Yeah, SimFarm. I mean, it's a strange idea. You wonder if Maxis was running out of ideas, or if they just said, we're going to ride this sim thing right to the ground. I don't know.
Kind of, sort of obvious, judging by the next two products that appeared afterwards.
Yeah, I think you get sort of oversaturation, because before it was mainly like a year between each sim game, which is, I mean, especially considering game development now, that's a pretty quick release cycle. But then it took less people to make a game, and they had their formula down. But I mean, yeah, in '93 alone, we just had 4 different SimCity games. 2 of which were re-releases of the first one.
Mm-hmm.
It just must have been overwhelming. I mean, there's a reason we didn't get a SimFarm 2, right?
Right. But yeah, so the next, basically from that 93 on, Maxis under Sim branded publishes like 3 different games. Well, for DOS, they actually continued doing that after that. but SimFarm was the first, right? And shall we just move on to the next one?
Yes, yeah.
Because in 1994, developed by a company called Thinking Tools, comes SimHealth, which I think is considered to be one of the most boring games of all time.
I played this a little bit, and yeah, it's not terribly exciting.
It's a weird thing because like it came out as a result of, I think that Clinton proposed healthcare reform.
That's right, and it didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, and so it sort of came around that time, and it's an interesting idea on paper, right? Sort of like you are now entrusted the entire healthcare system, like from like insurance to actual implementation, right?
Right, to policies, you can decide whether to be more of a Bernie Sanders would call it democratic socialism, a government-run healthcare system.
And you're not really given any kind of like an agenda in a way, so it seems like, especially in America, I would say, it's like an interesting idea of a product for you to sort of like see how the healthcare system works, right? And why certain things affect certain other things, and how pushing something to one side will take away from the other. And you know, like, it's an interesting concept. Like, I'm saying it right now, it sounds like an interesting sort of management pitch for a management game, right? The game that came out on the other end is nothing just but looking at charts, and it's boring as hell.
It is not just that. If you make certain decisions with your policies, it locks you out of making other changes for the rest of the game. So you can get yourself stuck, and you're just sort of waiting for the clock to run out. I mean, there is the closest thing to a game aspect in this is you are elected in the game as like some like health politician official, and every 4 years you go up for re-election. And if people hate your healthcare policies too much, you don't get re-elected.
Right. And yeah, it's sort of, I find it funny that the actual sort of the game sort of backdrop is that sort of very SimCity 2000 like.
It's misleading.
Isometric perspective, but it doesn't do anything. It's just there for you know, you have like little cars moving and stuff, but you can't actually interact with any of that stuff, and it's not really a representation of anything either in a large way. What you're interacting with is charts and lots of menus and lots of reading and things that very sort of not apparent. You know, you're not really given. This would be a game that would benefit from like a giant tutorial, right? Like a lot, like more so than what it has, the pop-up things. Like, so it would explain to you before you start playing how certain things work, so you can experiment, right? This would be a fine, interesting thing, like if it was a game of experimentation and learning about healthcare. But it really fails on all those levels. It's boring.
I think, yeah, it is boring. Had they taken the concepts in SimHealth and made it into a 30-minute educational video, it might be okay, I suppose, for a high school economic class or something. But there's not much game here. As you mentioned, it's very dry. You do have this sort of facade on the main screen where it looks like SimCity 2000, and you can click on the buildings to access different charts that you can manipulate, but you can also do that through the icons in the toolbar.
Which is a bit more apparent than what the buildings do.
Yeah, and as what I think Lazy Game Reviews on YouTube did SimHealth at one point, and he makes a funny point that the whole thing that makes your character get elected to office is he gets in a car wreck and he sees how bad the American health system is. Well, you see this animation of the car get into a wreck and catch on fire. That car remains on fire the whole rest of the game.
Yep.
It's extremely graphically very lazy.
Yeah.
You can skip SimHealth, but it's so strange. If you can at least watch like a video of it, you might find it interesting. I can't believe this was released commercially.
Yeah. It's a weird title. and I don't know. Maybe it has its fans. Please, if you are one, let us know in the comments.
Sure.
But I don't really know who would play this. I can't even say people like in the healthcare industry probably would definitely stay away from it as far as possible, because like me, I don't want to come home and play a game about supermarkets. So I don't really know who it targets.
So strange. I mean, yeah, the healthcare debate was in the news at the time, but to do a game out of it is misguided.
Yeah, but again, it's an interesting concept, I would say.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
Again, even when I'm saying it, it'd be like, oh, this is the kind of management game I would like to play. I just think the implementation and the design are very poor. So on a high concept level, yes, it works. It's certainly something could have been done with it. But as far as how it turned out, no, it's a fail. So that's that. I don't know if that game did. I think when I was looking at it last year, I think the reviews generally were very non-favorable, and I don't know if anybody really bought it and played it and whatnot. So I don't see. This probably lost. I don't. It didn't cost too much to develop. I don't think. It doesn't look like it. But
No, it's not.
But I don't know if it was some kind of a financial hit for, and I mean like, not hit in a bad way, for Maxis. It might have been because they sold a few years. So they sold the company a few years later. But that's in the post DOS era. So and this brings us to the last DOS title in the year 1995. In the year when Windows 95 took over, and that was the beginning of the end of DOS gaming. The final Maxis Sim DOS title, also developed by a different company called Intelligent Games. It was SimIsle, Missions in the Rainforest. And I tried playing it last year, and I couldn't figure it out.
I was not able to play this one. This was one I had overlooked because there were so many sim games. But I definitely remember seeing this in stores at the time. And isn't it a little more mission-based?
Yeah, essentially, at least as far as I can understand, because I couldn't get past the first mission even because something was just like off about it. Like I couldn't figure out the interface, which is in the year 1995 is fairly unforgivable. Maybe I'm just stupid, but sort of you have those islands, and you have your employees. Or if you're an organization, you need to sort of distribute them and accomplish certain things. Like in the first mission, I think it's collect something like plant samples or whatever. So you put them in jeeps and you like send them to go to certain places, and your employees are actual people. Like it's a team. Like one's doing this, and they have this sort of education, and so, and you sort of need to manage them and complete those missions. Couldn't tell you how you do it. I mean, I didn't read the manual, but sort of like, well, it's the year 1995, right? Like, I think by that point, many games and developers figured out how to make things accessible enough for you to figure out without reading a 100-page manual, even for a simulation sort of strategy game. So the fact that I wasn't able to do that, again, maybe I'm just really dumb and somebody will be in comment, oh, you asshole, just right click on the thing. Maybe I've really tried, and I couldn't do it. I don't know, there's nothing much else I can say about it.
I am looking here. It is amazing in when we get to Windows 95 how much Maxis repackaged their sim games.
Oh yeah.
And SimIsle is one that was in a package with the Sim Tower and SimCity Classic, and then you had SimEarth and SimLife and all this stuff. So that's that they kept their old catalog alive, I think is pretty neat. And SimIsle didn't get good reviews at the time either.
I can't imagine why.
I mean, certainly the Rainforest was big in 90s pop culture, right? You had
well, it was the whole beginning of the environmental
Captain Planet.
Yeah, everything. Sierra did the environment of it, and just generally
EcoQuest, right?
Yeah, there was just generally like the the rainforest and the preservation of the environment were kind of like a popular topic in many mediums, including cartoons and everything else.
Yeah, there was the Sean Connery movie Medicine Man.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, there's so many different things out there, and so you can see why you would think Sim Rainforest would be a good idea. But I mean, I even look at the title of SimIsle Missions in the Rainforest. You don't play a sim game to play missions. It just seems at that point so far removed from the original sim topic. I wouldn't mind getting my hands on this one and trying it out, but just looking at the pictures, it just seems baffling. Like, unless you knew it was a sim game, you might not guess it from the way the game looks.
Yeah, it has its own very interesting look, which it has like this sort of semi-schematic 3D representation of an island in isometric perspective, and it can actually be rotated at will too. Like not in real time, but you like press a button and it redraws the screen. So like it's not the Power Monger style where you could actually rotate in 3D and it would be cool. But no, you press a button and you wait a little and it redraws it at a different angle.
So maybe it does like 45 degrees or...
like a bit less than that, I think.
A bit less,
So
okay.
there's sort of like the increments. But so yeah, it's not smooth, but you can look at things from different sides. Although I don't know why you would want to, because for the most part, I know if you're looking at the screenshots now, it's kind of, it's not realistic representation. It's all the surface is done in that sort of like schematic kind of thing, the sort of green squares at different angles and stuff. Maybe you wanted to rotate something if something was like behind a hill maybe or some such shit. But yeah, so once again, couldn't figure it out and I just gave up, and that was the end of my journey with SimIsle.
Well, I mean, it's I think of this conversation we've had with this podcast on these games. It's amazing that they released so many different sim games in just a few years, and how different most of them were from each other.
But also, they kept doing it because the era of DOS ended, but the era of Maxis was not yet over. So, and they continued quite successfully to publish other stuff. For Windows, even slightly earlier. Let's mention it. Maxis published the original Click and Play, right?
Yes, yeah, I had a friend that had that. Right.
Yeah, so it's
you make your own little games,
and they re-released quite a few reissues, as we mentioned, of their previous titles, and they had like an educational title that I don't think anybody remembers. That they also developed. It's like the quest for patterns and the search for symbols, which I think were sort of like games that were nearly canceled and then eventually just released as a compilation on the CD-ROM that I don't think anybody remembers. And there were, things like SimTown, Sim Tower, which is of course was an adaptation of
U Tower.
Of the U Tower of a Japanese game. A really good one. And all kinds of stuff like weird, like Widget Workshop and oh dear lord, SimTunes and Sim Park. Maxis really continued to push their own thing, but basically since SimCity 2000 until post their sale to EA and until the Sims, they never really had a hit as big as SimCity or SimCity 2000.
Right. I mean, it is surprising, not that it's a DOS game, but SimCity 3000 did not come out until 99, which is 6 years after SimCity 2000. You would think, considering none of the other games really had sequels, that would have happened a bit sooner, but, maybe they just... You had, like, Streets of SimCity and SimCopter. I mean, those were strange. You could import your SimCity things.
And, like, race them and complete missions in the helicopter.
Do the mission, right. This is all. This has been an interesting journey. I just can't believe. And now, I mean, The Sims. I haven't played a Sims game in years, but I go to the there's a little Target here in Portland, Oregon, and the computer game section is really small, but all it is Sim games and Sim
Pretty
expansions,
much. That's
and also Blizzard games.
yeah.
But that's about it.
Those are sort of the Sims brought another revolution generation, and everything else to added to PC gaming. I can't stand The Sims, by the way. I don't know, it's probably an unpopular opinion, but I think if you've listened to this podcast, I don't think that will come as a surprise to you. Mostly because I find those games dreadfully boring. But I still see the appeal in the sort of implementation of the systems, right? That I respect. I just can't play them. That's all. It's not that I'm like, those games are shit. It's more like they're completely the opposite of what my kind of game that I prefer. So,
Yeah, I mean, for a while when you thought of simulation games, it would be, one of these sim games. And then since then, the simulation games are called, like whatever Tycoon, right? It's Tycoon at the end of it. Roller Coaster Tycoon, Games Tycoon, all those different things.
yeah. So I mean, management. There are plenty of management games, especially in the mid '90s. Like you get all the sort of city building simulators that do sort of RTS management blend your gangsters, your constructors, like all that sort of stuff. None of those would exist, I think, in my opinion, without SimCity.
That's right. And even though SimCity, it's probably not technically the first simulation game. It was maybe one of the first successful ones. It certainly helped popularize that genre.
Right. Yeah, but it gave rise to that whole sort of like, I can name a bunch, like Caesar, right, and its sequels.
Oh, sure, right.
And sort of all of those, like the many games that were inspired by, like SimCity and Populous, right? Also, they were around the same time. I actually think there was a compilation maybe for Amiga. I don't actually remember. It actually bundled. I think it was European only. Like, it was a bundle of SimCity and Populous. Which
what?
kind of... I'm pretty sure. I don't know what it's called, but I'm pretty sure I've seen it mentioned someplace, or maybe I've seen a box shot of it. So, I mean, in a weird way, it makes sense. But they were both sort of those groundbreaking games in a way, right? Like we said, SimCity wasn't the first successful management game, and it probably, I know the Populous is considered to be the first god game, but I'm fairly certain if we dig, like I always say with game history, always double triple check everything, and sort of like always doubt everything, because you're gonna dig up that somebody did it like 4 years earlier and just nobody just remembers and knows, and in 20 years that product disappears, and that solidifies our sort of modern understanding of whatever, of game history, which is essentially not correct, but it's just sort of like Populous and SimCity both gave rise to this sort of like another blend of like RTS management genre, like Constructor, less so than Caesar. Caesar is essentially SimCity, right, for the most part.
Yeah, you had a little bit of combat in that.
Right,
yeah.
but largely it's a city management game.
That's right, just in a historical setting.
Yeah, plebs are needed. Yeah, but like Constructor is a bit more heavy on the whole strategy unit control, but also a city management game, and there are others. So yes, SimCity is an extremely important title in computer gaming history, and just in gaming history, right? Because established genre conventions, it brought success. It's the first title of a company that went on to do many different things. And Will Wright, as a designer, went on to work on many other interesting things. And yeah, it inspired other developers to create things, not just rip-offs and clones, but actually sort of implement similar concepts in a different way. So yes, that's we have that 1989 game to thank for it.
Yeah, it's been fun talking about these sim games, it can be a bit tricky to find them now. They haven't done a great job of re-releasing them. Although I haven't, I think what Origin, the EA's online system, has
SimCity
a few
2000, right, or something.
SimCity 2000 they gave away for free once, or you can get it for not that much money. But the SimCity games you can certainly find, but the other ones, sadly, they haven't done a great job at re-releasing them. But maybe we'll see them again someday.
Hopefully.
Because just because even the ones I don't like, I agree with you, Anatoly. They're quite varied at what they do.
Right. Yeah.
And they're unique, and you in the 90s there was just a lot of very interesting PC games on weird topics, and certainly simulations was one way you could do that. I mean, you're not going to find a Sega Genesis game where you control ants. You find Booger Man maybe, but not.
Well, you also SimAnt got a port, I think, on SNES, right?
Oh, sure, that is true.
Yeah, which is like I've never tried them. It's the same as like I've never played the console port of Civilization either, but could work. I mean, maybe, I don't know.
It's a little clunky. The one that's really strange is the Super Nintendo port of SimCity 2000.
Oh boy,
because the resolution isn't there, and with the D-pad trying to control on those little tiny blocks in the isometric view.
Yeah, don't play those games on consoles. They're quite
No,
clearly PC games.
Yes, it's
everything else is maybe an interesting experiment, but no more than that.
That's right.
Alrighty, sir. Well, thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome.
I had fun talking about all these games. A lot of them, some of them I revisited last year just to take screenshots of and like replay a little bit, but a lot of them I haven't touched in a long time. So it was a nice trip down memory lane. And thank you to all the people who listened and listened this far. And if you have experiences that are different or just any kind of memories of those sim games from Maxis, please leave us a comment, and remember that you too can be on this podcast if you have a topic to talk about that relates to DOS games. Just find me on Twitter, hit me up, let me know what you want to talk about, and we'll work something out. And before we part, sir, can you tell the listeners where you can be found online?
Yes, this place is on Twitter at MATWBT. I just started a new podcast called Sequelcast 2, where William Thrasher and I look at movie franchises, and we're currently doing the RoboCop movies.
Oh boy.
So we just did RoboCop 2.
Oh shit.
A lot of very frustrating a very frustrating conversation.
Really? Can we talk? I haven't listened to the podcast, but I have a lot to say about RoboCop 2.
We can talk about it for a minute, sure.
Well, no, not right now, but after the podcast.
Okay. Yeah, on Twitter we can talk about RoboCop 2, sure. So you can find that out on Twitter at SequelCast2 with the number 2. Also, I do once a month I do a video game music podcast on Twitter at NintenDon'tShow. I'll be doing an episode coming up on music from Sierra Online games that has vocals in them.
Oh, nice. Oh, boy.
So, like Mixed Up Mother Goose or Take a Stand.
Take a Stand, man. The best.
The best song Tina Turner never recorded. Very good.
I still play it in my car all the time.
It has better production values than some other music at the time.
Yeah. I mean, especially in video games. Plus, like Mark Siebert had the high quality version on his website for the longest time until it disappeared. I still have that copy.
Oh, really? Wow, that's I remember.
Because in the game, it's highly compressed, but like on his website until a few years ago, now just links to another different website for some reason where the quality is not so good. But he had like an MP3 on his website that was essentially CD quality.
Oh, and there used to be a website. It might still be around, called Quest Studios, that had a lot of the Sierra music on it.
Yes, yeah. So that's cool. That's a cool podcast, and I will definitely check out the RoboCop 2 one There's
Yep.
a lot of. I'm very frustrated with what is recognized as for some reason a good sequel.
Yeah, it sounds very good. And then on Twitter, you are at DOS Nostalgic.
I am, as always, and hopefully people who listen to this podcast already know that, and maybe they want to, shoot me a few lines and be on this podcast as well. Well, thanks, sir, for being here. Thank you to everybody who listened, and we'll hopefully see each other again on another episode of Das Nostalgia podcast. Always remember your video game history. Goodbye.
Goodbye.